All right. Welcome, welcome. This will be episode 3 of the Panels and Pixels pod. Pixels is first, I think. I still, isn't it a shame? Big 2-5. I don't know what my own stuff is called. Um, I'm your host, Jason. I'm here. We're going to talk One Piece chapter 1162. And I've got some things bulleted after going through the chapter that I really want to discuss. This will be a review, more of a review than a recap, but I'm gonna do it recap style, as in like I'm just gonna go through page by page, really, pardon me, review what sticks out, and then we'll go from there. But let's do this. Let's do this. So, first thing of note, I mentioned this in the last One Piece review that that I thought the cover page would end soon. I mean, it was once once it said that Yamato completed the pilgrimage, it was kind of like, it's ending. It's really just a matter of like when, next chapter or the one after kind of thing. And it turned out to be next chapter. So that ends. They're all in the flower capital and eating food. We'll see where that goes. I don't know. I don't really know what to. I don't know what I expected from that. I guess we kind of got the like Moria Wano lore drop, but that was really it. I don't know. It definitely is not my favorite cover story, but I digress. We start with Rayleigh. He's taking Shaki like off the island. Pirates are like, no, Rayleigh's got Shocky, and they're like, get her, but don't hurt her. And I think everybody's kind of just like on some bro code stuff, just like respecting Rayleigh and what he's got, like, I don't know, respecting the fact that that's his woman. You know what I'm saying? I think that's kind of what that is. Because you even have Shiki like kicking somebody in the back of the head, like, bro, you try and hurt Rayleigh, you might hurt Shocky, and I'm gonna kill you. So that's how that went. Um, and then the Rocks Pirates are just like, yo, let's do treasure, leave Shocky to where she is, which I think that's kind of cool. I don't know, not too many thoughts on that. Just wanted to kind of mention that. But then we get the Kuma flashback, which I actually don't. Hold on. Huh. Do we? Is it like a direct? Okay, so yeah. So I brought this other chapter. I pulled this other chapter up for a completely different reason, but it works out in two aspects. We get an overlap with Kuma's flashback from chapter 1096. Yeah. So this scene that we see with Big Mom, um, basically shoving Ivankov into a wall, is the same scene but from a different angle as the one that's in 1096. It's on 1096 page 10ish, I think. Something like that. 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. Um but it's the same like scene. She's like not so fast. I mean, it's even uh like it's worded like Big Mom says the exact same thing. Kuma is like Eva. It's the same thing, just literally different angle. Um, so we get an overlap with that, which I thought was pretty cool from Oda. I like how when stuff like this comes up, he redraws the scene like completely. Um, I thought that was pretty. That's pretty. I think that's pretty cool of him. But uh, yeah, we get that scene over. You guys have read that one. But the first major thing I want to talk about, actually, let's back up a little bit. In the top panel on page 5, there's someone on the battlefield that looks like Marco. Now, it's not Marco because Marco is like a child at this point in the story. He's like 7, 8, something like that. He was 15 in the Odin flashback, and this is before that, because this is like Whitebeard isn't even known as Whitebeard yet. Like, he's still Edward Newgate, and he doesn't have his own crew. So this is years before that. And Marco is a child, but this person in this flashback looks like same hairstyle, clothes look similar from what I can see. Marco's dad, maybe? I mean, you don't really need an explanation for why he was an apprentice pirate on Whitebeard's crew. Like, that stuff kind of just happens. I mean, like, there are apprentice pirates on all crews, really, at a young age. Or not all crews, but, like, it's not something that's so out there. It's like, how is a child on the ship? Like, it happens for whatever circumstance. But this could be an explanation as to, like, how Marco was on there from age 15, right? Like, I mean, but even Kaido was on the Rock's crew when he was 15 because Rocks wanted him to join because he was stupidly strong. Like, maybe there was just like, maybe Marco was making some waves as a 15-year-old, and Whitebeard was like, yep, join up. So who knows? But I did want to point that out because he is kicking the life out of Silver Axe. So yeah. But then next panel, or next two panels, 3 panels. Oh, brother. I've been telling some guys in the Discord server that Garp, this flashback is going to make or break Garp's character for me, because if we go back, and this is why this is the reason I originally pulled this chapter up, but it just happened to be a double whammy with the Kuma flashback. If you go back to 1096 on page, the Kuma stuff was on page 12, by the way. On page 2 or 3 of the Kuma flashback in 1096, Sengoku, no, Kong, who was the fleet admiral at the time, I think. Actually, was he fleet admiral? Kong might be an admiral in this and just not fleet admiral yet. I don't know. But Kong is trying to get Garp to go to God Valley, and Garp is on vacation, something like that. Like, he is chilled out on an island somewhere. And oh my goodness. Okay. It says Navy headquarters, and Garp, it starts off with Garp saying, why such a remote island? Kong says, I can't tell you, Garp. Please just go. Okay. It's understandable to an extent. But in the next panel, Garp is saying, oh, is this the Celestial Dragon's little field trip? I warned you not to mess with Full-O-Lead. Okay. Here's my thoughts on this. Originally, when this dropped, the very first time I read this chapter, it was Fanscan, TCB, whatever. And I believe the original translation I first ever read of 1096, Garp referred to the he referred to it as the Celestial Dragon's game or something, like messed up game, something like that, like messed up something that they were doing on the island, giving the implication he knew to an extent what was going on. And in the official, it was changed to the Celestial Dragon's little field trip. More of like Garp knows they're on the island but doesn't know what's going on, which that lines better with the context, the rest of the context of the scene, because Kong is like, yo, who leaked that? Like, you're not even supposed to know, you know, you're not even supposed to know the details. And that's evident because Kong was like, I can't really tell you why. I just need you to go there. Lines up. Okay. And then, Garp's hate boner for Roger takes him there. That's beside the point. Garp knew that something with the celestial dragons was going on. Okay. And this is prior to, unless this specific flashback here has gotta be, unless Garp is in the area in the West Blue, this has gotta be a few days or weeks, because we find out like it took everybody a while to get to the island. Like not everybody was just in the vicinity and they just showed up, like, right, God Valley's in the West Blue. So Garp knew, at least for, I'm going to say headcanon a little bit, he knew at least for a few days that something crazy was going on there. Okay. Now, flash forward 1162. Garp is like, hey, Sengoku, did you know this was going on? This is italicized, it's emphasized, because it's like, bro, did you know like this messed up stuff was going on? And Sengoku, he's very vague. There was one man who reported some rumors, but he vanished from the Navy's ranks. This is 50-50 with Oda. This is either going to be someone important, or this is going to be an SBS question. Honestly, I think that is a story, or not even a story, but I think that's a plot point Oda wants to touch, and he's laying it there to foreshadow. But I think as of I'd say like the past 4 or 5 years, maybe, there's been stuff that Oda has dropped in a SBS where you kind of get the feel that he's dropping that in the SBS because he's running out of time to fit everything into the story how he originally planned when he originally put something in there. So whoever this is that started the rumor, there's 3 options. This is going to be a plot point later. It's going to be an SBS question, or it will be similar to, if you guys remember in Wano, how Who's Who was talking about how he got imprisoned over the Gum Gum fruit, and then there were like guards that would talk about Nika and they would disappear. It'll be one of those 3. But back to the point, Garp is like, if I ain't awake and dreaming, then it's all real. Basically, he's like, yo, this is cooked. What is this, right? This is something's majorly wrong. And so we're gonna go to the next page. We shift to Rock's perspective. Now, we'll touch on Garp later. That'll come back around. Rock's, okay. Thing number 1. I'm going to touch on this first because it's the most minor thing out of this scene. Okay. Eris reminds me of Monet. And I don't, like, everybody does the whole Nami clone thing. I think Oda has his way that he, like, designs women. I think that's very, like, apparent, right? A lot of times when you get a new woman in the story, it's Nami clone, or people think that, especially when it gets adapted into the anime and Toei they fix it up to make every female look like Nami, every woman look like Nami, right? That beside, I really think that Eris looks like Monet. Like, I don't know. That's just the vibe I get. I'm not really sure. I'm not knowledgeable on Monet like that. Outside of Punk Hazard, she died, but I don't know. I don't know if that's a theory out there or not. She just really, like, even her eyes, they look like Monet to me. The eyes, the hair. Yeah, we'll just have to see because her hair is at least blonde, if not some type of color. So that'll be really interesting to see, like when that gets animated. Like, is Eris a blonde? Does she like, are her eyes the same as Monet? Like, what's up? So I'm really interested to see that. But that was the minor thing. Um, Big thing, the Davy clan that was on the stage has been Domi Reversi. Now, this is interesting because Emu doesn't show up until the end of the chapter. So the real question is, who Domi like, did Garling, can he Domi Reversi them? I'm not sure. Um I think we've seen all the Gods Knights on the island, and I think he's the highest ranked one on the island. Like, he's not, he might be the commander right now and like not the supreme commander. I'd have to go back and fact check that, but he's not the supreme commander at the moment. But I would assume he's the strongest and highest ranked Gods Knight on the island. So if anybody's Domi reversing out of the Gods Knights, I would assume that it's him. That's just really interesting if he can do that, because when it was introduced, you just get this feel that it's like one of Emu's, like, you know, big attacks. Like, you know how in like fighting games, you when you like in Ninja Storm, Naruto Ninja Storm, you will like hold a button and you'll have like triangle, circle, X square, or Y, B, A, X, and that's like one of the attacks. Like, I'm thinking that's one of Emu's like special things, but it doesn't really, like, if Emu isn't the one that did this, then it doesn't really seem like Domi Reversi's that special. It seems like it'll be easily overturned once you kind of figure out the method. I don't know though, because Rocks, we'll get to later, he like strikes them all down and they don't get turned back, so it's a little confusing. But his mom, no, his dad and his grandma were among the Davy clan that got Domi Reversi'd, which is a little interesting. I will not lie. It is a little interesting that his like blood family. I mean, I guess he alluded to it and even said it, but I don't know. I just wasn't expecting like the Rock's dad and grandma drop. But we get basically kind of more confirmation that more powerful hockey is like kind of putting the Gods Knights in check. Like, Garling's like, he's strong. The wounds he's inflicting are gonna take longer to regenerate. Kind of the same thing we got from Scopper when he injured, I'm drawing a blank, Summers on Elbath in the present before the flashback started. But Eris is like, yo, let me down. You can't hold them off one-handed. Like, I was a pirate. I can I can defend myself. I don't, I don't need you to just carry me through this. Being strong. And I think she like throws herself off of Rox's shoulder, which is like, it's kind of cool. She's like, if I was so weak that you needed to just coddle and carry me the whole time, you wouldn't have fallen in love with me. Blah blah blah. Love, peace. Am I right? And Rox, he blushes. He's like, don't be an idiot. And the important thing here that I wanted to touch on in this scene specifically, whoa, I just like moved that, is the Davy Rock says if you get caught, like if a member of the Davy clan gets caught, it makes hell seem like a lukewarm bath. That's a big statement. I just got to put that out. That is a huge statement. But it takes my mind to, are the Davy clan like the families, basically, are the Davy clan like Eldians in one, like, are the Davy clan, are they a clan that functions like Eldians in the One Piece world? because I would assume that the Davy clan, if if this path I'm going, if it is correct, I would assume the Davy clan isn't the only clan that can be manipulated like this. But I just mean like we all know in Attack on Titan, the Ackermans, right? They couldn't be manipulated by the founding Titan, right? But pretty much every Eldian could, outside of a select few, I believe. Um, or maybe it was just the Ackermans. I don't know. My AOT lore, it's been a minute, but you guys get what I'm saying. Like, is this that kind of situation where Emu just kind of has free reign over certain clans? Like, he can kind of do whatever to an extent, or is it like, and when I say to an extent, I mean like, I think if it was just as simple as like, oh, I can manipulate you because you're this member, like a member of this clan, he would have done it to Rox, right? Would have done it all those years ago at Marijois, and would have done it now, right? Like, would have got Domi Reversi just now. So there's obviously some factor that keeps someone from being Domi Reversied, but it's giving the vibe of like Eldians and the founding Titan from AOT. I just want to keep my eye on that. That line is really interesting to me. Like, it could just be like, you know, they hate the Davy clan and will get tortured, but I don't know. There are just sometimes like ways Oda phrase something that I think paired with showing Rox's family Domi Reversied, there I think there's a little more there than it's just like hate for the Davy clan, right? For whatever happened during the Void Century. But Eris, she basically is like, if it looks like they're gonna catch us, I'll end it for me and Teach, so we don't have to go through that. So we're all gonna survive and meet in Lelucia. Brother, I'm calling BS radar. It's going off. Emu, the whole proximity for Lelucia thing when they wanted to test the mother flame, I'm calling bull. There's okay. The Lelucia lore drops throughout the series, they're not random, right? I don't think it's an instance where Lelucia was initially part of a cover story, right? And then when we get the Revolutionary Army plot points, it ties back in, you know, because of X, Y, and Z, you know, like, oh, we can use this because it was part of the cover story, right? Maybe, you know, I could see that. And then it ends there, right? But the fact that it was one of the nations that rebelled that hard that they called it, I think it was one of 9 or something like that. I'd have to get the actual number. I think it's between 6 and 9, somewhere in there. But the fact that it was one of those nations that rebelled that hard that it was like making headlines like that, like they took over, successful revolution, right? And then they want to test the mother flame. And Lelucia just happens to be the island that it gets tested on because of quote unquote proximity. I find it unlikely. Reason being, it could have been any other island. It just could have been. Like, when we talk actual proximity, that may very well be fact. It may just be the closest thing to the red line. Or close, it may just be the closest thing to wherever they had the mother flame. I said the red line because Marijois is on top of the red line, you know, but it may very well be the closest island to wherever the mother flame was, or the weapon that is using it. But Oda could have written it to where any of those islands was the closest in proximity. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't know the other the other islands, but let's say Wano for sake. Like it's not Wano, but I'm saying like what it like Oda could have very easily inserted a random island and it could have been proximity to that island, but it was Lelucia where there's history, right? Obviously the revolution, the rebellion's happening, so that's part of it for sure. Like they didn't just wipe out an obeying member nation of the world government. There's a little factor to it there for sure, but I look, and I may sound like I'm tinfoil hatting, but when you read this story and you read 1,162 chapters of this story, and you get to this part of the story this late in the game, every panel has meaning. Every panel, and I would actually say every dialogue bubble has meaning, and I would say 90% of the panels have deeper meaning, right? I changed it because like we get on the next page after the Lelucio dialogue, we get like a wide view of God Valley. Oh, actually, that's a bad example because it's demonstrating how rocks like slash the island to help Eris and Teach escape. But you get my drift, right? um, you know, the dialogue matters, and I just don't think that was something randomly said. Like I don't think Lelucia is just a random. There's some tie there, and because of that tie, I think that's the real reason that Emu wanted to destroy it. Right? They wanted to test the weapon on it. I don't think it was proximity. I'm calling it now. It's October 15th, 2025. Come back to this when I'm right. Okay. And then interesting, we have Teach looking back at this as Rox is like, it's crazy. This looks like a final stand moment, but it's not. So this exact moment isn't. I don't know what's coming in the future, but hey. Next page, Big Mom. She is stupid. I don't know what she's doing. She's literally like, look at me, I got a rock. She's holding the fruit, talking out loud to herself about how she got the Azure Dragon fruit. And Kaido just comes in and rightfully so just smacks the life out of her and eats the fruit. And it's funny, like it's in the air as Big Mom is like trying to reel from getting hit by Kaido because he smacks her with the kanabo like in the face. And Kaido is like, oh, no time to grab it. And he just like eats it out of the air, which is really funny. And Big Mom's just like, damn you, Kaido. So I thought that was really funny. But it's really interesting that Big Mom wanted to give this to Katakuri. I saw there's a lot of retcon talk going on. I don't know. I'm gonna call it a retcon just because I use information from the Vibro cards to explain points, get points across or whatever. Like a lot of people's stance is that it's not in the manga, so you know it's conjecture or whatever. But me personally, I use information from the Vibro cards in like my talking points and arguments, so I'm gonna have to go retcon. I don't think Oda looks over all of the Vibro cards, but I would think like over certain characters he probably does. But the retcon would be that Katakuri had his devil fruit at a young age. Like I guess he would have had it in the flashback already, and Big Mom is saying that she wants to give this fruit to him. Which would mean that he doesn't have it. It would have to mean that for him to have it. You know, like I don't think Big Mom knows the secret to having someone hold two devil fruits. So, you know, either that or like she doesn't know he ate the fruit yet. One of those two. But it's really interesting that that's what she wanted to do with that. I don't know. Like, I don't think there's anything deeper to wanting to give him that specifically. You know, she just wanted her crew to be strong. Um, so yeah, that was really interesting. But at the bottom of page 11, in the last review, I talked about the theory that Shanks and Shamrock are switched, and I no longer think that's the case. And this is one of those examples I was talking about. Like, every panel has meaning, it all matters. Excuse me, I had to burp. Dragon, okay. In the panel on the right at the bottom of this page, Dragon is running away with Shanks. Shanks is crying. Dragon's running away. One Direction. In the panel on the left, right next to it, Eris is running away with Teach. She's running more towards the page, but ultimately she's going to the left, you know, versus the right. And I think this is a parallel. It's paralleling. Is that a word, paralleling? I don't know. I don't know if I've ever said that. Anyways, it's a parallel of Shanks versus Blackbeard now in the present, right? The rivalry they have, how they're enemies to each other. I would bet a lot of money that that's what Oda is showcasing here. So I think the whole Shanks and Shamrock being switched theory, I don't really think it's still plausible. Like, this doesn't disprove it alone, like the content of the story. But I think that, like, a big piece of manga is a big piece of manga is basically the imagery, right? And you're like, duh, it's manga, it's pictures and words. That's not what I mean. The paneling. The paneling tells just as much of the story as the art itself. And I think this is one of those instances where the paneling is telling more than the story, right? And this parallel with how Dragon is taking a baby one way, Eris is taking a baby the other way, and we know who Eris is taking. We know that the baby that Dragon has is 90% Shanks. There's slim chance it could, quote unquote, be Shamrock, and either way, at the end of the day, it's Shanks. You know, at the end of the day, it's the Shanks we know. Could it have been who the mother wanted to be Shamrock? Sure, but that point is that point. I just wanted to touch on that. I think that's a really good instance of paneling being more storytelling than the actual content of the panels. So I wanted to touch on that. Okay, next page. A lot of the stuff I wanted to touch on is towards the end of the chapter, but we're almost done. This is the last bullet point I have, but it's not the last thing I'm going to talk about. Roger Pirates are like, yo, we've never seen treasure like this. And then Gabon, I think it's Gabon. I can't really tell who this bubble is coming from. I'd assume it's him. It's over him. Yeah, I would assume it's him. But he's like, whoa, there's even some devil fruit. And now we know that there were, I'm pretty sure we knew this before, but there were more devil fruits than just the pawpaw fruit and the ua ua no mi, right? So, thing with this is, I think this is going to be the fruit or treasure chest that Dragon put Shanks in, and then he takes the fruit itself, right? Because, and it's funny, I can kind of see this unfolding down the line. Like, we got the pamphlet from the movie film Red about, like, you see Shanks and You see Shanks be discovered by Roger, Rayleigh, and Scopper. I think it's all three of them. It's Roger and Rayleigh for sure. I'm pretty sure Scopper's in the flashback, but I can see this unfolding. Like Scopper's like, "Oh, there's a devil fruit," and then when they're on the ship leaving, he's like, "Yo, Roger, come check this out. Like, look." And then when he's trying to show him the fruit, boom, it's a baby instead. So I think that's kind of how that's gonna unfold. But I think this is gonna be Dragon's fruit, assuming he has one. I'm pretty sure he does. And so the point for me is gonna be like, well, with a powerful fruit like dragons, why wasn't it one of the treasures that people were talking about? Like, why wasn't Big Mom going after that or whatever? Or, why wasn't it one of the ones that was leaked? One, we technically don't know that this fruit wasn't leaked, but it really probably is just as simple as like, probably not in the encyclopedia, or just like the celestial dragons, whoever put the treasures together for the quote unquote game didn't know what the fruit was. I think it's really that simple. Like, it's just, a lot of devil fruits now are just like, you don't know what they are. Like, we see it in this lobby when Spondum gives Kaku and I'm drawing a blank, Khalifa, when he gives them their fruits, he's kind of like, we collected these, we don't really know what they are though, so good luck. I think this is just that kind of case, and dragons just turned out to be something super OP. So boom boom. Yeah, messed up scene at the top of the next page. There's some civilians like, yo, it's the world government, the Navy, they're here to save us. And they're just like, God Valley is unaffiliated with us, therefore, and they just blow them all up. So that's pretty sick. In a not good way. That's pretty sick by whoever's in charge of that. But we've got Kuma. We transition, we get another overlap with the Kuma flashback, and we see Saturn sitting on top of a rock. Now, initially reading this, and even the leaks said that whoever is talking to Saturn here was Emu. And after reading this, reading it and talking to people, I don't think this is Emu talking to Saturn, but it's basically Saturn is Rock's dead. Now, there are two things that can probably help kind of clue in on who it really is. You'd have to go back and look at any time the Gorosei communicate telepathically, and you'd have to go back and look at any of the times that Emu is communicating with them telepathically. And that would tell you kind of based off the font, right? Because there are times where the font that's used will be kind of specified to whoever's talking, but I really think this is just a font used for when there's telepathy going on. But I assume this is one of the Gorosei saying Saturn is Rock's dead, and he's like, I can't really say. All of this is just like so unexpected. And he goes, if anything, and this will be a really sick scene in the anime. I can. There's no way this scene isn't cool in the anime. But you see Kaido like rising up out of the forest or whatever on the island into the clouds, and we get Saturn saying there is a danger that such. Oh my goodness, I was like throwing words together. There's a danger that such wanton destruction, that's really interesting, might bring about the birth of something entirely new. And whoever he's talking to says that must not happen. And we cut away from looking at Saturn, and we get kind of a wide view. We see more explosions. We get Kuma sending people away. And this will also be very cinematic paired with the last scene I was saying. But the bottom panel of this page is wide view God Valley, and we see the hockey lightning just kind of strike the island like it did in Elbath. And when Emu showed up, and we get Roger, Garp, and Rox, they all they get like the what do you call this? It's like a spark that is used in manga to be like, oh, like this caught my attention, right? And so they all like snap, and there's a question mark and an exclamation point. It's like, oh, like they all sense it, right? And you see the spider legs of Saturn transform, and Roger's crew is like, yo, Rox is here. Like Rox's crew, they're coming up, and Roger's like, nah, bro, wait, we got bigger fish to fry, which is confirmation, if you needed it, that he sensed Emu touchdown, right? And Rox is like, bro, you use my family against me? If this is gonna come to it, I'm gonna murk them boys. That's basically what he said. He's just like, yo, if it's a fight to the death, I'm gonna pick me. That's what he says, basically. I'm not gonna read it bar for bar, but final page of the chapter. Oh yeah, also Garling's a fraud. Hashtag fraud watch Garling. Rox beat the life out of him. He's dripping blood, and like, bruh, Garling should be ashamed. He better use that as his training arc, because that's sad the way he's laying there. But final page is of the chapter. Whitebeard shows up to help Rox, and Rox is like, there's nothing in it for you, big dog. Like, you sure you want to help? You know, this is the last hoorah. If it goes, if it ends right here, this is it, basically. And Whitebeard's like, man, don't even worry about it, man. You've been holding down all this time. Like, I got you, Brody. Which this is Whitebeard, he actually references drinking on Rox's tab, which is funny because this is a trait Whitebeard will carry to the end of his life. He doesn't pay for his own drinks, so that's pretty funny. But he's just like, yo, I've been drinking on your tab all this time. Like, you know, I've been riding your ship, drinking on your tab all this time. I've got you, bro. And then we get Kaido pulling up. He's like, I've got a power now. Like, I want to test it. Now, I mentioned some guys I was talking to about the chapter. This is one of two things. This is either Kaido, because someone was like, plus respect for Kaido and Whitebeard. Like, they're going to stick it through with Rox until the bitter end. And I was like, half that respect that you give to Whitebeard, half it for Kaido, because he's only there to test his fruit, right? But then I thought, maybe he's actually there to back them up, and he's hiding it, like hiding his true feelings behind his fruit. It's probably a mixture of both. It's probably not like one or the other. I think it's wanting to test his fruit more, but I don't know. It's interesting because I wonder what's going to happen to Kaido here, because I feel like I remember reading that Kaido's fruit saved his life. Like, he was on death's door after the events of this, but I feel like I'm starting to feel like I remember that incorrectly now. I don't know. I have to go back and read. But Rox is like, yeah, I'm happy for you. I can tell you're having the most fun out of anybody here right now, which that's interesting. That's different than the original scan I read, bro. I'm gonna get started on a translation rant. That's just what Rox says. He's like, good for you, kid. You look like you're having more fun than anybody else. Boom. And Whitebeard goes, that's all well and good, buddy, but can I ask what that is exactly? And we get Silhouette. Saturn is in his Gyuki form that you see on Egghead. He's in that form, but on top of it is Emu, crown and all, which is different than when Emu shows up through Gunko. It's different. Emu showed up through Gunko, and all that happened was her hair got longer and she grew wings. Now, it looks like Emu has like appeared out of Saturn and Emu's there in the flesh. Um, did you see the eyes? You see the crown thing on the silhouette? And Garp is like, now I know I'm dreaming, bro. What is this? And Roger seems like he's happy, ready to go. Like, new fight, new boss drop. Let's go. um, and he's basically like, I still have much to learn. Like, what is this? Like, this more adventure? Like, I didn't know adventure got real like this. And we get Rox answering Whitebeard's question, like asking, what is that? And Rox says, if I had to call it anything, that represents the world. Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna get on the translation tip. Pause. Because in the scans, if I had to say, it was like if I had to say, I'd call it the world. Now, it's like, why are you debating such small wordplay? And yeah, okay. I'm debating small changes in the words. But I had same Discord server I've been talking to, like talking about how I talked to some guys about it. In that server, someone brought up to me, like, they brought up 3 different events, which one of them I don't think is connected personally. I think it's a real reach. But they brought up how Rox calls Emu the world. Now, I haven't seen the scans for myself, but everybody has said it's Sekai. It's Sekai. It's 3 syllables in Japanese. Okay. Now, thing about Japanese, there's probably more than just these 3 ways, but there are 3 ways to say world in Japanese. And Sekai is like the general word for word direct translation like you can get when saying world. What I mean by that is it's kind of, I don't know, it's hard to explain because Japanese is never really one-to-one, but it's the same world that's in the new world, Shinsekai. It's the same world that's in like Isekai, which is like a genre of anime and manga where you get transported to another world. It's the same word, right? It's general, like place, world. Like it's the same as when you say I love you more than anything in the whole wide world, right? It's that way of saying world, not something like planetary, like the Gorosei, which is I think it's either the 5 elder stars or planets. I'm pretty sure it's planets, but you get my drift. Like it's not that way because that say, I think, is the part, yeah, it's the say part of that word of Gorosei. That is like the planetary part. It's not that. It's Sekai, which is literally like very general, which is why I don't think it's Rox calling Emu the blue planet, right? Essentially, which is the name of the One Piece world, if you didn't know. People are tinfoil hatting. Like, there's another instance where I do think there's something here. Like, there's meaning to Rox calling Emu the world. I just don't think Emu is like the world incarnate. Like, it's not the world in a body, right? I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's like a mother nature thing because the devil fruits. I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. I think the tinfoil hat part comes from in Logtown when Dragon saves Luffy. Um, Smoker is talking to Dragon, and Dragon is basically like, the world is waiting for our response. Personally, I don't think, and people are using like, oh yeah, it's, he said, Sakai here, and there's Sakai in the other one, and this is Sakai, and it's like, no, it's the most general way to say world, and it's used everywhere in the story. Like Shin Sakai, the new world, it's the same word, right? Like it's the same part of the word, but when you look at it, it's the same thing. Like it's the same word, right? People are using that scene from Dragon, which I think was allusion to the Revolutionary Army, because we didn't know who Dragon was at the time. I think that's what that is. But there's a scene in Egghead when Katarina Devon and, was it Augur? It's Augur, are talking to Saturn, and Saturn's like, "What are you people after?" And I don't know which of them responds, but they basically just say the world. Now, I think that is connected to Rox saying the world here, because, being asked, what are you guys after? That goal comes from Teach. And Teach is Rox's son. We don't really know. We don't know the extent of their relationship, if it's really just like Teach knows Rox by name, or if Rox escapes and makes it to Lelucia and they have some kind of a relationship. Not really sure beyond that, but yeah, I do think those two are connected. The one with Dragon, I don't really think that's connected. I think that's a big reach. Mainly because it's a general way of saying word that is very often said. And if you went through the story and pointed out every time the word world is said, Sakai would be in there a lot. And I just don't like, you would have to say all those instances are like about Emu. If Rox is calling Emu the world, right? I think it's more big picture, like we're facing the world. We're facing the peak of the world. Like this person is at the top of it all. I think that's kind of more what this is. But circling back, when I'm referring to initial translations, the way it's phrased in the official, Rox pretty much says what I just said, what I think it is. He's like, if I had to call it anything, that represents the world, right? Emu represents the pinnacle of what you have to go against, which is the world government, pretty much. Like above your admiral, your fleet admiral, your supreme commander, above your gods knights, your Gorosei, above all that's known in this One Piece world, this person represents the peak of it all, which is what I think Rox is trying to say. But I think in the original translation I read, in the official, Rox says, if I had to call it anything, that represents. I think in the original translation I read, he just said, if I had to say, I'd call it the world, which is more so like what I mentioned earlier, like directly saying that's world incarnate versus what this is, like that represents the world. Two different things, you know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm kind of harping on it, I don't know, but I just like, that's a theory going around that I see like a lot of clickbaity stuff on YouTube and on like Reddit, social media, and I don't really like it. I think it's kind of disingenuous when you like know like the language a little bit. I think it's like taking advantage of people who don't understand that. But like I said, it's the same world that appears very frequently. Shinsekai is the easiest example to give, because the new world is so prominent in One Piece, but it's the same as that. So yeah, just wanted to touch on that. And that's the end of the chapter. We do have a break next week, which this chapter release was supposed to be 1163, which Oda had a sudden health break, which kind of split it up, because it would have been our 3 in the row, and this is a regular scheduled break. So nothing to worry about there. I think Oda probably just had like a really bad stomach bug or something, nothing major. But break next week. We'll be back the following week. Next week though, I will have a Boruto review for you guys. It lines up perfect because I didn't know how I was going to talk about. I don't really know the schedule of how I was going to do Boruto and One Piece in the same week, but I'll have to wait till next month to find out. So yeah, that's going to be it for this chapter. I'll probably read it again and see if there's anything I want to do like a separate discussion on. I know I mentioned in the last review like a Mihawk, Rayleigh, like, a tie between them. I mentioned like doing something on that, and truthfully speaking, I didn't want to sit and talk about the pattern on their jackets for 20 to 30 minutes. I'd have to go back and reread every time Mihawk shows up, every time Rayleigh shows up to get glimpses of that, and I already do a reread a certain way. I just don't have time to venture outside of that with other things I'm reading and other things I have going on. But if more information arises that I think can tie into that, then I'll touch on it. But I'm going to go through this chapter again after I get this done and uploaded and see if anything warrants its own thing. But that's kind of partially why I do this podcast style thing. I talk about it all in one go. I give it its own segment and get all my thoughts out there. But, I also try to keep it reasonable on the time. Like, this is about to be an hour long, which is longer than the last one, and it's longer than a Boruto review, which is once a month. So I'm gonna head out. I appreciate you. If you're here right now and you listen to this whole thing, I appreciate you. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good jazz. I really do appreciate you so much. I love you. You're a great person, and have a blessed day. And I'm gonna see you all next week for Boruto. Peace.